Hello, everyone. Let's have more news about the Steelers. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. The Pittsburgh Steelers might have just pulled off one of their most massive trades in franchise history. The headliners of the deal included Minka Fitzpatrick to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey. There were late round picks swapped between the two clubs as well. It's a massive risk for general manager Omar Khan, but he remains aggressive as he tries to improve his roster. With Fitzpatrick off the team, it leaves a gaping hole in the free safety position. It's hard to imagine Juan Thornhill being the replacement they had in mind when they swung this move. Don't be shocked if they add another player to the position between now and week 1 of the regular season. They could sign a free agent or add another player in a trade if they prefer. Anything is on the table with Khan. Unless Ramsey moves from cornerback to safety, you'd have to imagine another move is in the works. Khan has added talent to his team throughout his tenure, and it's easy to imagine more fireworks are on the horizon. There might not be a ton of names out there who will be qualified replacements, but they could help secure the safety void that Fitzpatrick has left behind, getting the obvious replacement out of the way first. If the New Orleans Saints remain committed to tanking this season, moving Tyrann Mathieu out of the building would help. He continues to stay in trade rumors this year, but nothing has gotten across the finish line. The Steelers should be interested in the veteran as a replacement. Mathieu has shown signs of deteriorating, but he remains an effective starter. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
Everything the Steelers were up to yesterday, and Adam reporting that. We have Jeremy Fowler here. Jeremy, what is going on in Pittsburgh?
Dan, I'm trying to make sense of this right now. I actually just got off the phone, talked to some sources about this. And for the Steelers, this was a simple move. They feel like they have a never-ending quest to try to get a Super Bowl roster together, even if it's not perfect. Baltimore's getting better around them. The Cincinnati Bengals offense is getting better. So they figured Jalen Ramsey was a clear upgrade, that they have a guy who can play inside, traditional cornerback. He can play safety. But to them, this is not, the source I just talked to actually scoffed at the all-in notion. They said, we do this every year. This is just what we need to do to try to surround not only the team with the winner, but Aaron Rodgers. They feel like they have the best quarterback outlook they've had in 5 years. They have a capable option. They are trying to maximize it now. And as for the TJ Watt situation, I was told this is sort of the cost of doing business. These negotiations get tricky. They get sticky. They're hard to go through. The Steelers remain optimistic that they can try to reach a deal with Watt at some point. That would be the goal. Executives I've talked to with some other teams do not expect Watt to be traded. It is interesting. Teams are talking about this, what it would take to potentially acquire him, but there's not a lot of feeling or sense around the league I get that he's going to be moved.
Sure. I mean, as long as he's unsigned and seemingly unhappy, I'm sure there'll be plenty of conversations in front offices about, hey, do you guys think we could possibly do this? But as of now, it seems like he'll be in Pittsburgh and they'll probably get him signed. In terms of the trade that went down yesterday and the sort of overhaul of the secondary, bringing in the new tight end, EJ, what did you think about the Steelers' moves?
Well, Gratz, I love the move, and I think you address a lot of areas to try to help your roster get better. And look, this is a maximization of 2025, at least at this point in the offseason. You bring in a Jalen Ramsey who can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play outside corner. You link in with guys like Darius Slay, who just won the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. You also got Joey Porter Jr., who's playing really well as a young corner. And you got to think about the receivers that they're going to have to cover in their division. You think about Jamar Chase, you think about T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Jerry Jeudy with Cleveland. So many vaunted receivers and receiving cores that you want to have a really good secondary with. And the addition of Jonnu Smith was fantastic. When you think about Aaron Rodgers, this point in his career, guys, if you play a lot of 12 personnel, which is one running back, two tight ends, two receivers, you're able to help protect Aaron Rodgers and keep him upright because you got two tight ends inside. But also, Jonnu Smith is a guy who can play tight end, but he's really a receiver. So you're almost getting 12 personnel, but 11 personnel principles with his type of speed and his ability. And look, I work out at the same gym as Jonnu Smith. This guy's been working his tail off the entire offseason. So I was really happy to see him get rewarded, obviously, with a new move now going to Pittsburgh. And I guarantee you, Arthur Smith is going to feature him in this offense. You think back when Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans, that's where Jonnu Smith had a lot of success earlier in his career as well. So it all makes a ton of sense for the Steelers, and I think it makes sense for the Dolphins too.
What do you think, D-Wood?
If this was 3 years ago, I would be much more excited, to be honest with you. Listen, if you look at the totality of all the moves that the Pittsburgh Steelers have made, quite honestly, they've gotten older at a lot of the critical positions that's required to win big time football games. You got a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Darius Slade's like the second oldest cornerback in the National Football League. He's 30. He's in his mid-30s. Cam Hayward is 36. T.J. Watt is, very good player. He's 30. Jalen Ramsey's 30. All of these guys, big name guys, but they're up there in age. And a 17-game slate, if you wanted to make a run, the number one thing that you got to deal with is health. Can these guys stay healthy enough to make a run for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm highly skeptical of that playing itself out.
And Jeremy, you mentioned like your Steelers people saying we do this every year. That graphic we just showed, I mean, that's a lot of turnover in one offseason for this organization. It feels different. Does it not feel different to you as somebody who covered them for a long time and is kind of used to how they do business?
Yeah, from the outside in, it does look a little bit like a panic move. But when I talk to people and ask them about that, I was told like they try to treat it on a case-by-case basis. They feel like these are just simply upgrades and that these guys can hold up. Jalen Ramsey's 30 years old. Steelers feel like he has a lot of juice. He's not playing like an old player. Jonnu Smith was one of the best yards after catch players in the entire league last year. So they feel like he's going to get Aaron Rodgers easy yards. When they trade DK Metcalf and replace him with George Pickens, moving him to Dallas, they feel like that's better for the locker room too, not only from an ability standpoint. So they feel like they've gotten better, but it's not going to last. This is not a 2026 conversation. This is 2025, and it does feel very boom or bust for a team that never rebuilds and always tries to hang in there, but sort of stuck living in the middle right now in that 9 or 10 win range. They're trying to get over that hump.
If you bring in a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and I remember having some conversations with people in that building, and they were patient with Aaron Rodgers. They said, look, we don't mind going through the draft and having Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, all these guys available, but they end up going with Will Howard, who I think is more of a developmental quarterback, and it's a good plan because now you bring in Aaron Rodgers. So sure, there are abilities where this doesn't go right, but ultimately, if I'm the Steelers, you got to entice a guy like Aaron Rodgers to want to, come and join your football team. And why not try to load up in all the areas where you can play really good defense? You also have a solid offensive line with some young players up front. And so I expect good things to come out of Pittsburgh. And look, Woody makes a great point. Like, if these guys aren't healthy, then all is lost. But ultimately, this is the best way to try to vaunt up your roster, have some depth as well with some young guys behind these starters. And I still think they can go out there and win some playoff games.
Maybe I'm just a cynic, but this reminds me of something. It reminds me, because we've talked so much about Mike Tomlin and could he have his Andy Reid pivot in his coaching career, because it reminds me of that 2011 Eagles team that kind of did in, Andy when it didn't go so well. Do you imagine that the bottom could fall out here?
It could, absolutely. And listen, Mike Tomlin's a Hall of Fame head coach. We all understand that. But again, I go back to my original point is, a lot of the critical positions for the Pittsburgh Steelers, those guys are older.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's what you're relying upon if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You've pushed your chips all in for this year with all the name brands that you've brought in. But if this thing goes sideways, I look at a possible reboot for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026,
which is something we have not seen in a very long time. Certainly interesting, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it going forward. We have more on this as we move along on Get Up. Absence from the team's most recent minicamp has sent a loud and clear message around the league, and according to our Adam Schefter, multiple teams have been discussing whether they can trade for him. The Steelers haven't shown any willingness to deal Watt, and they remain adamant that they want him to finish his career in Pittsburgh. But that is not going to stop us, Damian Woody, from speculating about who should be picking up the phone if Pittsburgh changes their mind and makes T.J. Watt available. What team do you think?
How about the Washington Commanders?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, the Commanders are ahead of schedule. We saw the year that they had last year. Obviously, they got a superstar quarterback in Jaden Daniels. We saw the team make acquisitions. Debo Samuel come over, add another weapon. Mm-hmm. We saw, them add Laramie Tunsil to add more protection around them. I think the one thing when you look at the Washington Commanders on the defensive side is lack of pass rush.
Sure.
Well, guess who can solve that? A guy like T.J. Watt, and your superstar quarterback is on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
That would be, to me, the most enticing reason to go out there and be aggressive and be bold.
We see this a lot, Jeremy, with teams with the quarterback on the rookie deal trying to maximize that window, and Washington's moves this offseason have indicated they feel that way. Do you agree with D. Wood? In a hypothetical world where T.J. Watt's available, is that the team you'd want to put him on?
Yes, D. Wood, when I looked at Washington's depth chart, it just screams add a pass rusher, add an elite guy there, and then you've got everything you need. The problem is they just don't have a lot of draft picks, making all the trades they did. Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, Marshawn Lattimore. So Washington still makes the most sense to me, but I want to add another quick team. It would be perfect is the Green Bay Packers, because they were quietly looking around for pass rush this offseason. He's from Wisconsin. It would make so much sense if they could somehow pull that off.
Wow, yeah. I mean, you say Washington out of draft picks, but the Pittsburgh Steelers clearly are okay with doing like a player for player, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? Again, we're down the speculative road. They asked me for a pick. I said Buffalo. This is a team that's right there on the edge, right? And I know they got Joey Bosa, but I think at this point in his career, you'd say T.J. Watt is probably better and a higher impact player. So, yeah, that would be the team for me. That one last step to get them over that hump.
A man who was part of the news break this morning from, I believe, one of the hardest golf courses on earth, right there in the hills of Pittsburgh. Ladies and gentlemen, senior NFL insider for ESPN, Adam Schefter. Shefty, we'll get to you golfing at Oakmont here in a bit, and you being in Plum, our hometown, which we hope you go pay your respects to Rudy Subs, get a whole Italian hot lettuce, onion, mayo, fries, cheese on the side, Turner's jug to go. Let's talk about this deal. We just showed that $1 million worth of game clip from 2021, and D-Butch has talked about Jalen Ramsey in very high regard whenever it comes to being a D-back in the NFL, with how athletic he is, how diverse he is, how everything really comes together if they let him. Are the Steelers planning on utilizing Jalen Ramsey in any certain ways, do we know at this point? And Minka heading out of town, what does that mean for the Steelers following that?
Well, it means they have an opening at safety. They've been very active this offseason in adding Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey. I think it gives them options in the secondary, Pat, about how they want to go about doing this. Obviously, Joey Porter Jr. also is there. They've got a ton of defensive backs right now. And it always felt to me like Pittsburgh was the most likely destination. It never felt like the Rams or the Chargers were going to be able to do their part financially to make a trade like this happen. The Steelers not only made it happen, but gave Jalen Ramsey a raise for this coming season. So that tells you how much they wanted him. They've been talking about him all along. It becomes a very complicated trade here. Certainly for the time of the year that we're in, the last day of June, you get a trade like this that involves two players who have been three-time All-Pro selections. And you see Minka Fitzpatrick on that initial list of Steelers start. Well, he was a part of the deal. Steelers wanted Jonnu Smith to reunite him with Arthur Smith. They get him in this package as well. And I mean, to me, it says, yes, Pittsburgh is going all in, spending whatever it takes. They go and get Aaron Rodgers. They go and get Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. It has been a very unconventional Steelers-like offseason with all the players that they've added, including DK Metcalf. This is like a remade roster. The one question I have in all of this now is, and we haven't talked about it a whole lot, what about TJ Watt?
Yeah.
Everybody just has assumed, rightfully, that the two sides will figure it out. But I don't think they're very close right now. And I don't think that he's particularly pleased. Now, it could change just like that, and they could figure out a way to get it done. But you know what? They just gave Jonnu Smith more money. They just gave Jalen Ramsey more money. They haven't given T.J. Watt more money. And you just wonder how that's going to play out here in the coming weeks. Again, he's such a part of the team, you cannot imagine him not being there.
Yes.
But you would think that this situation would be settled by now, and it's not.
Yeah, I agree, Schefter. And I would like to let everybody know that if you were to go back and watch the tape, I would ask on a very regular basis, hey, if everything's good, why is TJ not there? You know, if everything's just going to be A-OK, why does he feel obligated to take a $170,000 fine of missing mandatory minicamp? If everything was okay, you would think a guy who's a staple and a pillar of the team would have been there. I'm not saying there's any issues, but I've just asked the question on a regular basis because, like, everybody else is saying they think a deal's going to get done. I think TJ not going is him saying, is it? I don't know if a deal's going to get done. And now let's get back to the point of what you said there about paying Jalen more money and Jonnu more money. Kaboli put this tweet up here. Kaboli said, well, he's been told the Steelers view Jonnu Smith as a tight end, a slot wide receiver, and a fullback. They will use him in a very hybrid way in Arthur Smith's offense. And they see Jalen Ramsey as an outside corner, slot corner, and he can take some snaps at safety, says Mark Caboli. With that being said, if you're going to utilize the shit out of him, you would obviously want to pay them more. I thought a lot of people didn't want Jalen because they didn't want to pick up the entirety of the contract. Do we know if they've picked up all the money from both these contracts, or are the Miami Dolphins having to pay any bills?
Yeah, I don't know the full breakdown of that. There have been a lot of missed calls in this flurry of activity, and I don't have the full answer to that at this particular time. Yeah, Pat, I got to tell you something. It was a very surreal scene. Right? I've never been to Oakmont. I get invited. I'm in your backyard here in Plum, Pennsylvania.
Hell yeah.
And I walk into the locker room, and the only thing I wanted to see was, where did Wyndham Clark kick in that locker? Is it still here? Right? So I took a picture of it. I could send it over. We could put it up. It's still there. And some of the members want to fix it. I'm like, you can't fix that. So I walk in. I see the locker, and right when I walk in, I see Neil Shipley, the great former amateur golfer who's on tour, and he's incredible. Like, I've watched Neil Shipley all the time, and I'm talking to Neil Shipley, and I get the trade that Jalen's going down, and I go to post. You know what I learned about Oakmont? The men's locker room? No Wi-Fi, because I was posting for a few minutes, and it wasn't going through, and then I went running out to go post it. So there's no Wi-Fi in the men's. You're not missing anything there, Pat, but this place is pretty magical. So the trades all come down, whole flurry of activity. Again, the Steelers have stepped up, and they're paying all these guys right now, except T.J. Watt. I mean, that's really the deal right now. And Miami's made a lot of changes here with a lot of team captains that are no longer there in Miami. So it becomes very interesting for them as well. Big change you're not expecting here in late June.
Calais Campbell also not there, obviously. We talked about that was like at the beginning of this entire thing, whenever Gumpy was losing his mind. Go ahead, comment.
Armstead, I forget if that he was mentioned. He's one of their captains, too. I think someone tweeted it was 4 of their 5 captains, or 3 of their 5 captains are gone now.
Interesting to see how it goes. Jalen Ramsey is now the 4th Dolphins captain. You actually tweeted it, Shefty. Yeah, okay, smart. From last season, no longer on the team in 2025. Armstead, Calais Campbell, and David Long. Go ahead, D-Buck.
Yeah, I believe Tyreek Hill was a captain last year, too, and I don't think he'll be a captain going into this year. I think he said he's got to earn that respect back with the team. What is the relationship right now with Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins?
The way I understand it, I think people are counting on him bouncing back, having a big season. He's got a lot to prove. I'm sure with all the money going around to wide receivers, he's going to want to get paid again. I think Tyreek Hill has a chance to really bounce back and have a big time kind of year. I think that's what people in the organization are expecting out of him this upcoming season. It'll be up to him to do that, but again, a lot of changes around him, and they're counting on Tyreek Hill to come through.
Okay, so the only thing we're really thinking about here, or trying to figure out, is if Miami's paying any of Jalen's salary, right? That is still potentially a piece of information we don't know?
I would think that they're paying something. I mean, I think Jalen gets more money out of this, and I think they had to finagle. I can't imagine that the Steelers took on the entire contract and gave him a raise. That would not be, in my mind, something that's practical. I don't think, but again, you have to see how it played out.
Okay, and Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, you may go visit them downtown, or you can go down to UPMC. Are they done in this whole department? Obviously, T.J. Watt lingering, and do you think this is going to be the new norm for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, this is not what they've done, and I think that they have to be done because there really is no other priority other than T.J. Watt. And this team, there has not been a team in the league the last couple of years that has inquired about and checked into more wide receivers than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that's what we're seeing here with Jonnu Smith being viewed as a weapon, because they wanted somebody else to step forward. They're expecting that Calvin Austin's going to be their number 2 wide receiver. From what I understand, Roman Wilson, the former second-round draft pick from Michigan, has looked strong during OTAs for whatever that's worth. And now you get a guy like Jonnu Smith to mix in with DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods. And I think that they feel like this guy can be shifted all around. Arthur Smith knows how to use him. It's the 3rd different franchise that Arthur Smith has worked with Jonnu Smith. They were together in Tennessee. They were together in Atlanta. And now they'll be together in Pittsburgh again. And I think, they got Aaron coming in at quarterback. And when you're doing that, you're trying to do everything you can to give him one last run in what looks like is his last season. So they seem to be all in with that one lingering issue that's outstanding right now.
Darius Slay missing from the graphic. That was on us, not on Dirty, who put this together. This thing looks filthy, but also to get to learn about the Pittsburgh football culture, too. Like what it's going to be like to be a Pittsburgh Steeler and learn the building. Going to be great to have them in the city. You talk about wide receivers and the Steelers snooping around on them. There's one big name at wide receiver position that there's still a convo about before you tee off at Oakmont, and I assume shoot at 250?
Oh.
I think you might be generous. You might be about 275.
Go ahead, Ty.
Shefty, last time we talked to you, we mentioned how Terry McLaurin and Washington are pretty far apart on his new contract. He's not happy about that. Has there been any progress with that whole situation, or do you have any kind of update there?
That's a tough one. I know there's no update, which is the update, and that's the problem. The problem is with this particular situation. I think Terry McLaurin is going to argue that we've seen other wide receivers who his numbers are comparable to, like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and DK Metcalf, get paid over $30 million a year this offseason. And I think the Commanders then can say yes, but Mike Evans, who also has had comparable numbers, is at $24 million. So there really is quite a difference and a gap between what both sides would want. They have not made any progress. I would think that we'll see if there are any teams that decide to come snooping around Terry McLaurin to see if they could try to pry loose Terry McLaurin, who, by the way, I cannot envision the Commanders moving on from, no matter how disgruntled he may be. Again, it's sort of like T.J. Watt. You can't imagine that these two sides, as far apart as they are today, wouldn't be able to somehow find a way to bridge their differences and figure out a solution. But today, McLaurin and the Commanders are not close. Watt and the Steelers are not close. And those will be two of the storylines that we are tracking as we get ready for training camp.
Couple great players. We'd love to see them play for the Indianapolis Colts at quite a discounted rate. And welcome them to our city.
Pat, every team in the league would love to see Terry McLaurin or T.J. Watt playing in their city. Everybody.
Not as much as Indianapolis, though.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Indianapolis wants them more than the other cities.
Yeah, J.W. Marriott will put a picture of both of them on
That's
there.
right. It looks cool.
They would have to play at quite a discounted rate, I would say. It would certainly be a year to prove it, but we'd love to have them. All right, Shefty, good luck out there, man. How is your game?
Terrible. I was walking down with Neil Shipley. I'm like, what will you shoot today? He goes, about a 70, give or take a few strokes either way. 67 if I'm playing well. 73. I said, there he is. Hey, come on.
Big dog.
See that?
Hey, how you doing, man? Good to see you, dude.
Yeah, you can't. I got my earbuds in, so otherwise.
Hey, Schefter, will you translate for us? Hey, will you tell him that we think he looks good, and it's great to see him, great hair?
They think you look great, and they love your hair. They think I should be.
Thank you, Neil. All right, good luck out there.
He's shooting at 67 today. I'm shooting about 167
Hey,
today.
can you ask him how similar it is to when the U.S. Open was there, how it is today? Like how you're going to play on it versus...
Neil, is it similar to the way the U.S. Open was when they play here now or not?
Close. It's a little shorter now.
Close. The rough is a little shorter, he says.
Okay, and ask him, how do I become a member at that place? I just got to pay the fee? I got to get invited?
You know what? I was actually going to talk to people, but I don't want to overstep my bounds. Pat wants to know what he has to do to get out here and play around.
I'll be a member.
This is awesome.
We got to get that done. We're going to work on that, Pat. I'm here 2 days, okay? And by the way...
Are you staying there?
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That would be if I.
There it is.
I don't
That's
even
the
become
dream.
a member,
On
but
the
that
course?
in
That's the dream. Yeah.
I've never even been there. I've never.
A huge shout out to Joe Schmidt and Steven Eisenberg who invited Pat. I don't know what I'm doing. Like
Eisenberg and Schmidt, the boys.
Come on now.
Obviously,
can you come out? I'm like, sure, I got nothing going on. Like, there's nothing going to happen in the NFL. It's not like there's going to be 3 players traded in the morning that I go to Oakmont. It's not like I'm going to walk into the locker room and see Neil Shipley. It's not like I'm going to be admiring Wyndham.
Hey, what up, dude?
Oh, look at this guy.
How we doing, dude?
With 2.
Hey, how's Michigan doing? How we looking?
He wants to know how's Michigan doing. Great. He's great. Kick everybody's ass.
That's Wink, defense coordinator for.
Tyler Boyd, a Pittsburgh native and former standout wide receiver at the University of Pittsburgh, has expressed a strong desire to return home and play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. After spending 9 seasons in the NFL, Boyd sees an opportunity to continue his career where it all began. His connection to the city and his roots in the local football community make the Steelers an ideal destination as he looks for his next team. Boyd's interest in the Steelers isn't new. Following 8 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals, he had previously expressed hope of signing with Pittsburgh. However, in 2024, he ultimately joined the Tennessee Titans instead. Now that he's once again a free agent, Boyd has reiterated his enthusiasm for playing in front of his hometown crowd and having his family nearby to support him during games. One of Boyd's key motivations for wanting to join the Steelers is his relationship with head coach Mike Tomlin. The two developed a connection during Boyd's time at Pitt, where Tomlin often provided guidance and support. Boyd recalls engaging conversations with Tomlin, Antonio Brown, and other Steelers after Pitt practices, which helped shape his growth as a player. He values the mentorship and camaraderie that Tomlin offered during those formative years. The Steelers could potentially benefit from adding a veteran presence like Boyd to their receiving corps. Since trading George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys in May, the team has not acquired a proven veteran receiver. While they have new additions like DK Metcalf and Robert Woods for the 2025 season, and young players such as Calvin Austin Threed and Roman Wilson, Boyd's experience and familiarity with Pittsburgh could be a valuable asset. Boyd had impressive seasons in 2018 and 2019 with back-to-back 1,000-yard campaigns, establishing himself as a reliable target. And you, fan, what do you think about Tyler Boyd's situation? Leave your